Welcome to Fully Booked, the bookish podcast where I'll chat about all things book and reading related. Whether you're a new or a pro reader, there's something for everyone to learn. I'm here to help you on your reading journey and find that next great read that will keep you fully booked. Hello, readers, and welcome to episode 51 of Fully Booked. I'm your host, Natalie, and today's episode is going to be a bit of a different one, if you guys can't tell from what I'm wearing, for those of you who are watching right now, and from the episode title. We're not doing any reading wrap-ups or book recommendations of any sorts today. We are doing a very much sit-down, chatty episode, which is crazy because I haven't done an episode like this since the very first video podcast episode that I ever released for the podcast, so it's been a while, but I'm excited to do something a little bit different today. Also, for anyone who's watching this on upload day, happy early Halloween. I'd love to know if you guys have any of your own costume or Halloween party or other plans. If you're someone who's very much into the Halloween spirit. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not much of a Halloween person myself, especially the older I get. I think I've just never been into Halloween. It is, definitely not my favorite holiday. I also don't like some of the things that are associated with Halloween for very personal reasons. That's just me. For any of you guys who are a little bit more Halloween oriented, I would love to know. I'm gonna be honest, I wanted to do something a lot scarier originally for today's episode, where I had you guys maybe send in ghost or spooky stories, things that have happened to you, and read them on the pod. For something kind of book story related, but I honestly chickened out because I am a scaredy cat at heart, to put it lightly. And you guys can probably tell even from the types of books that I read, I'm just not much of like a person who enjoys the darker, spookier genres. Like I don't really read a lot of horror and books with like paranormal elements and like whatnot. But before we really dive into today's scary topic, what better way to start the episode off than with a fun dab of the day? So going in order as always, I have a actually not so fun drink right now, and I am having some oolong tea because I didn't really feel like coffee at the time of day that I'm filming this right now, and I'm just having a oolong kind of black tea, which is from the brand Chimney Inn Tea, and I know I haven't talked to you guys about them in a bit, but they are basically a oolong tea brand that harvests directly from their farms in Taiwan. They make it all small batch, fresh, and have a very delicious range of teas. I've tried every single one of their teas at this rate, and I love all of them so much. I highly recommend, and the code is always available. I'll put it up on the screen just in case, but I do have a code with them, which will also be in the show notes or the description, and you can get 10% off of any order that you place with them. And then for my outfit, or rather costume of the day, I'm gonna be honest, if you guys don't watch the TV show or have seen the memes, then you probably have no idea what I am dressed as right now. So I will give you the biggest hint of all, and I apologize for the impression that is about to come out of my mouth. The worst thing about prison was the Dementors. They were flying everywhere. And if that still did not give away who I am right now, I'm Prison Mike. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, guys, this was the best I could come up with on a little bit short notice. I did have more elaborate costumes planned originally, and let's just say life gets busy, gets in the way, and I just did not have time to execute those other options that I originally had in mind, so this was the best I came up with. But yeah, if you guys are like me and are also fans of The Office, then hopefully you can appreciate today's costume. Then for books, I do actually have two pretty fun current reads. Right now, the first one is Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. This one's actually super appropriate to be talking about for today's current read because the incident in the book takes place on Halloween. So what better thing to be talking about right now? But yeah, if you haven't heard of this one, it's basically Holly Jackson's newest release, and it's also her first adult mystery thriller. I believe the rest of her books are all YA. And basically what's happening, this one is we have our FMC Jet, who has been brutally attacked and is now trying to figure out who attempted to murder her. But she has a very set amount of time to figure out, which I actually don't want to spoil why that is for you guys. But yeah, that's really it. She's really just trying to solve the mystery, basically, of who tried to murder her and going around questioning everyone and whatnot. One note I will say for now is that even though this is supposed to be an adult novel, the way it's written, it still feels a little bit YA to me. Like, it just doesn't feel quite adult because of the tone for some reason. It might also be because it's airing more on the mystery rather than the thriller side, which makes it a little bit more like fun and lighthearted. It's not as like dark and scary and thriller-like, but that might change. I'm only about a third of the way in so far, so we'll see what kind of twists and turns she puts in there. And then the second book, which I actually just picked up this morning before starting to film this, is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I also want to apologize for the little sticky note that's covering the front cover of the book. Again, information that is on the front of the book that I do not want to be disclosed, and I know editing self will thank me for doing this later and not having to blur it out. I'll try to find a more fun way to cover up book covers in the future, but yeah, this is all we got for now. You guys have probably been hearing about this one for a while. It's basically about these two magicians who are kind of battling it out in this fierce competition. And yeah, we're very much set in this very magical, whimsical setting in this circus that only opens at night, hence the title. And this one, I really haven't gotten that far in. I'm only about 30 pages in so far, but I'm really loving the whimsical writing style so far. I feel like I just have not read a book like this in a while that is this whimsical and transportive and just feels like I'm totally in another world when I'm reading it. So I really can't wait to have more time to sit down and continue this one. And with that, let's actually dive into today's spooky topic. And I'm gonna be honest, the title for today's episode is still a work in progress in my mind right now. I am not sure what the finalized title is gonna be at the time that I'm talking to you guys right now. The main gist of today's episode and question that I'm posing is really, do I still enjoy reading in 2025? And I think this is a very valid and relevant topic on my mind lately, especially now that it's been over a year of fully booked and I've had a lot of time to move from simply reading for fun to now reading for content, which I think with that movement just comes somewhat of a mindset shift, which is really going to be my first talking point. And to answer that question shortly, the short answer is yes, I actually do still enjoy reading. The long answer is sometimes because of these points that I'm about to get into right now. So like I just briefly mentioned, this first point is gonna be on what I'm calling moving from the passion to the output mindset now as a book content creator, where again, like I said, I can no longer only read for pleasure and I also just have the content in mind. And now that I think about it, I really do miss the days where I could literally just walk into the bookstore or library, browse to my heart's content, read the back cover description, go, oh, that interests me, and then just start reading that book if I really wanted to, because I just have a bunch of other factors and questions coming into play now every time I pick up a book, and I'm just so much more selective overall about which books that I choose to pick up. If you guys can't tell, also from me trying to post my monthly TBRs online. It's kind of sad in a way that, yeah, these are the types of questions that are on my mind more, where I honestly am thinking more about what my audience wants to see when I'm picking up a book. Yeah, like I'm pretty much just thinking about, oh, like, is this book still popular? Is this a book that people are still talking about or they would want to see me talk about and complete and hear all of my thoughts on? I really wish at times I could, I guess, at least let go of some of those questions and I guess even expectations that I'm putting on myself at times, but it's just really hard to disconnect from that mindset lately, especially because I've also been trying to put out a lot more content, if you guys haven't noticed, even, with the short form. And yeah, I just need to be reading certain types of books, I feel like, to get all that content out. Or at least that is how I feel and the mindset that I've been in. Something I've realized too is that I feel like, especially for this year, I've kind of been trying to go down the path of diversifying my reading. I don't know if that's been the most successful still, if I'm going to be honest, but that is what we've been trying to do, which I've also realized as I keep going down this path that that's not always necessarily a good thing. Again, it goes along with audience and expectations and whatnot, and trying and branching out different genres that other people, might be more interested in and want to hear about. At least for me, it just feels like my podcast would be very boring if I only read one genre. But yeah, I've just realized that branching out has not necessarily led me to finding the greatest reads that are favorites of mine. Like, obviously, reading is subjective, and everybody has their own different favorite genres and specific books. But yeah, some of the ones I've just been trying in, again, this diversification have just not been for me necessarily. But I feel like I've still been trying to force myself because that is what I feel is going to make better content for you guys. And then diving a bit deeper into the output and content-driven mindset, I think along with that, at least for me, what has been happening on my reading journey is playing that comparison game, and with that, experiencing reader burnout a lot over the past couple of months. I don't know if this is just my opinion or if it's how my feed and algorithm are curated as well, but I feel like, at least to me, reading wrap-ups still seem to be pretty popular in the book content space, even in short form. I just feel like reading wrap-ups are one of those things that everybody will always watch no matter, what time of year it is. Obviously, the problem with reading wrap-ups is that in order to have enough to talk about, you have to read enough books within the month or 2 months, however you do your reading wrap-ups. And I find, at least for me, my threshold is that I have to read at least 6 books to have enough to talk about in a reading wrap-up. I just feel like if I read anything less than even 4 or 5 books a month, I just don't really have enough to talk about. Actually, I don't know if that's going to be the case since I actually did switch to the bi-monthly reading wrap-ups, but obviously I was finding that a lot when I was doing the monthly reading wrap-ups, and some of you might find this as well. Like, obviously, your reading wrap-ups are just going to be super short, and I don't know. Personally, I love just tuning into long reading wrap-ups. I'm such a long-form content girl, and so I can't help it, and I just, really play the comparison game and try to read as much as I can. It's just to keep up with, what I am seeing, which is honestly getting kind of crazy because I see so many other book content creators who are reading 100 plus books a year, maybe even 200 books a year, something crazy. Guys, I've even scrolled through other people's YouTube video comments and seen people saying that they read 40 or 50 books that month, and that honestly just baffles my mind as someone who is not the fastest reader in the world. Like, I think on average for me, I would say it obviously depends on the genre and type of book. Like, I do have certain books that I can fly through in 2 to 3 days because I'm enjoying it that much. But on average, I would say that I take 4 to 5 days, even up to a week, to finish a book on average. So I just cannot comprehend how some people are getting through like tens of books every week. And it really just makes me question, like, how much are you even absorbing and taking away from each book when you're consuming that much? Because books in and of themselves are long form content in terms of different reading materials. On average, especially if you're reading mostly fiction, I feel like on average a book is like 300 and something pages, which I just cannot see how you could be blowing through a book a day or whatever these people are doing. And obviously reading wrap-ups are a very constrained type of book content where the whole point is that you are there to talk about what you read that past month or whatever time period it is. And you don't really have room to just diverge into any other bookish topics. You really just have to talk about what you read, like basically giving shorter book reviews. So yeah, with that and playing this whole comparison game, you kind of start to feel like a failure after a bit when you just keep looking around you too much. And just like I was talking about the diversification mindset, I feel like I've been forcing myself to read simply to hit the number goals, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm still impressed that I did hit my reading goal already and we still have a couple months left in the year to read more, but it's definitely made me question what books I missed out on because I was simply trying to hit a number goal. And thinking about it in general, even like in other areas of life that you might set goals for, I've realized that metrics and number-based goals are not always the healthiest and the most sustainable type of goals to set. Like, obviously, they are very useful for a reason because it makes it easy to know what outcome you're working towards when it's metric based. But yeah, I think for something like reading where, it is supposed to be fun still, it just makes things kind of difficult at times. Obviously, it's weird because I am posting online. My thoughts and reviews are going up for people to see. Like, reading is still technically a hobby to me. And yeah, just combining all these things together, it's not feeling as fun. Then the last point that I want to touch upon in today's episode is a little bit more general. It's not necessarily book related, but it does play into everything still, where I've been experiencing some stunted growth with the podcast lately. Obviously, you guys probably can't necessarily tell, but for me, at least, I noticed for the past couple months, like in the summertime especially, I was experiencing a little more rapid growth and like increased views across all of my platforms. But I feel like lately, over the past couple weeks, I would say, the growth has definitely been plateauing. Again, this is where it's more general in that you also tend to play the comparison game with any other like big content creators and just feeling kind of behind as someone who's still in the very kind of early stages as a small creator. I think the reason I'm bringing this up is because this has been contributing to, again, losing the passion not only just for reading itself, but also for the podcast, for Fully Booked. Because if I really think about it, the main reason that I initially started this podcast was really just to have a platform and a space where I could talk about books as much as I want. I probably mentioned several times already to you guys, I do not have a lot of close reader friends that I can necessarily just talk about books with all the time as much as I want. There's only so much I can talk about books to my husband before he probably starts to tune me out. So like I said, I really just wanted to have my own space and platform where I could talk as much as I want about books, book-related topics, and share it with people who also have the same passion as I do. And we can just have this space and like kind of community together even. And I feel like that spark, that initial desire has just kind of been lost with, again, playing the overall content game. I feel like that's why I'm really trying to shift and change my focus in the direction for the podcast over like the next couple of months and going into next year. There's definitely a lot on the back burner and things going on in the background that you guys don't know about yet, but that I am really planning to kind of change the direction, which is honestly scary at times because I feel like 2025 has really been the year of experimenting, again, with types of books, but also the book content itself. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, some of the content that I've been posting, actually some of the more like popular content, I would say, has not been my favorite to create and output. If I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys, which I don't know, that's gonna be hard to hear for some of you guys who do enjoy, I guess, especially some of the short form content that I've been putting out. But yeah, some of it is not always the most enjoyable or the most fulfilling. That's really gonna be it for today's episode. I feel like today's episode is going to be shorter compared to the more recent episodes that I've put out. So if you guys like shorter episodes, then hopefully you appreciated that. And I know today's episode, like these more sit-down chatty episodes, are probably not everyone's favorite, but don't fear, we are going to be back with more regular content, like in terms of the reading wrap-ups and the book recommendations over the next couple of weeks, which reminds me, some announcements before we sign off for today. I am going to be posting 3 episodes in the month of November. I know I've been doing the bi-weekly episodes right now, but I did have a little bit of extra content and topics that I wanted to put out. I actually originally wanted to go back to weekly episodes for the month of November because I had a lot of initial ideas episodes. But I'm going to be honest, I am going to be out of the country for about a week and a bit in the month of November. And so I knew that I would have to batch record and edit a lot more content, even with that extra week. And I didn't want to stress out as much before and while I'm away. So yeah, that's why, hence 3 episodes in November. And then we'll be back to the normal schedule pretty much in December. But I am going to be putting lots of special episodes out, especially as the countdown to Christmas and the holidays is going to start. Which probably feels weird me saying this when Halloween technically hasn't passed yet when you guys are watching this, potentially. But if you guys couldn't tell from my episodes last year, I'm a big Christmas girl. Christmas is my favorite holiday, so we're gonna have a lot of fun with the episodes coming out. And again, so you don't miss out on any of these upcoming episodes, make sure you have subscribed to the podcast YouTube channel. All episodes, audio and video, go up, as well as any other types of videos that I'm putting up, which you guys are definitely gonna be getting some, again, with the holidays coming up. So yeah, make sure you're subscribed, do all the usual, rate, review, like the podcast, wherever you listen, I guess especially if you're listening audio only on another platform right now. Also, don't forget, follow me on all my other socials. And with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next episode. Goodbye! Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you were able to take away something, and be sure to follow the podcast for more bookish content. Until next time, stay fully booked, and I'll talk to you soon.